Dear participants, welcome you all for this session. In this morning session, we are with us Professor Inderdeep Singh, Professor Mechanical Engineering from IIT Roorkee. Sir is a distinguished professor in the area of manufacturing and has a lot of work done in the area of injection molding as a conventional manufacturing and 3D printing. This special talk by the Professor Inderdeep will be on the comparison of the conventional way of manufacturing and the additive way of manufacturing. I will request Professor Indrajit to please start his proceeding.
Okay, thank you, Professor Rupinder, for giving this opportunity to interact with the participants during this uh, FDP on 4D printing and associated technologies. I am Inderdeep Singh, as already introduced by Professor Rupinder. I teach here in Department of Mechanical Engineering at IIT Roorkee. And our broad area of interest is composite materials and specifically polymer based composite materials. And as 3D printing is also using polymers as one of the important raw materials for making the prototypes, rather than, I must say, not only prototypes but the products are also being made these days using the 3D printing technology. So I will be trying to compare the performance of 3D printed parts vis-a-vis the injection molded parts, because recently we did some investigation. It was experimental investigation to find out that how the two processes compare in terms of the mechanical performance. Now, why this type of study is important? Because normally the notion among all of us is that we are using 3D printing technologies for making the prototypes or certain patterns. Can we use 3D printing as a manufacturing process which can be used for making the products? So we thought that one of the most important processes for used for making polymeric products is injection molding. So why not to compare the performance of the two processes, that is injection molding and vis-a-vis the 3D printing. Now in 3D printing, we use the FDM technology, which is a very, very common and well-known technology, and almost all institutes, colleges, research labs have facilities to use the 3D printing in terms of FDM. So I will be comparing, but prior to that, I would like to introduce that what is the next stage. Already I have seen the program today. After my session, Professor Rupinder will be talking about the 3D printing of biocompatible filaments, in which natural fibers or cellulose based reinforcements can be used, or not reinforcement materials can be compounded or extruded along with the polymer. So that kind of work is going on, the latest in the field of research in this area. So I will be trying to compare only pure filaments or pure polymer based products only, or pure polymer based samples. So let us quickly just share the presentation. Just give me a second. Is my screen visible?
Ji sir, loud and clear sir.
Okay, okay. So this, thank you very much. So this is a study which we have recently done, and we have got it published also. Fortunately, it was accepted in a special issue on additive manufacturing in Journal of Materials Engineering and Performance. So this is a comparative analysis between 3D printing versus conventional manufacturing. But prior to going for this, I will just start with what we are doing at IIT Roorkee. Just two slides I have included, that our major research area is on composite materials, and all of us know, as it is a faculty development program, we might be teaching courses related to composite materials to our students, either in the UG level or PG level or as an elective course. So in composite materials, you have two different materials together. As I told you that Professor Rupinder will be talking in the next session on compounded filaments which can be used for 3D printing, in which you will have two constituents. One will be a polymer which will act as a matrix. Another one will be a functional material. It can be anything. For biocompatible materials, it will be a specific constituent which will be compatible to the human body. So you have two constituents in any composite material, which is one of them is called as the matrix, the another one is called as the reinforcement. So the basic definition given by Comanduri is that this is a material system composed of a mixture or a combination of two or more macro constituents. So it's not only that you will have two, you can have three, four macro constituents in the composite material, but why they are added? In order to impart some special characteristics or special function to the material that we are trying to develop. Now these constituents normally they differ in form and chemical composition. Now if you talk about hydroxyapatite as a constituent and a polymer, suppose you base polymer you are taking as PLA. So PLA and hydroxyapatite will be different in terms of their chemical composition, as well as in a case of a composite material they will be insoluble in each other. So here we can safely assume one of the examples of composite materials can be the roof, the RCC structure in which you have the metallic rods and concrete. So concrete acts as a matrix and the steel rods act as the reinforcement. So you have two combination of two different materials which are physically distinct, chemically also they are different, but we combine them together to achieve a specific set of properties. Now composites are of different types. Now what is the latest trend? There are different advantages. I'll not dwell too much into this. So there are different types of composite materials, but what we are trying to do here at IIT is that we are trying to develop now fully biodegradable sustainable composite materials, which is based on natural fibers and biodegradable polymers. So fully biodegradable composites is the area in which we are working now. So we can see here that right now the most of the composite materials polymer based. I am only talking about polymer based. So those of you who have a fair amount of knowledge or who have already done some research in the field of composite materials must be knowing that we can classify the composite materials based on the type of matrix. We can have a polymeric matrix composite materials, we can have a metal matrix composite materials, we can have a ceramic matrix composite material. So based on the matrix we can classify them into three broad families. So my talk basically is focused on polymeric matrix composite materials only. Why? Because we are trying to compare the 3D printing performance vis-a-vis a conventional manufacturing process, that is injection molding. So therefore we are trying to compare two different manufacturing processes, but the materials remains polymeric. So polymeric, therefore the classification that I am also talking here is about polymeric composites only, not the metal matrix and the ceramic matrix composite. So here we see based on the polymeric composites, normally most of the polymers that we are using these days all across the world, not only in India, are non-biodegradable polymers. So the polymers we use like polypropylene, polyethylene or epoxy, polyester, all these polymers which are used for making either the polymeric parts or polymeric matrix composite parts are non-biodegradable in nature, and that is a big concern of industry as well as the governments. Now government policies are slightly in favor of sustainable materials, biodegradable materials, environment friendly materials. So we have to slowly shift from non-biodegradable polymers to biodegradable polymers. And on the reinforcement side also, most of the composites that are being developed are based on synthetic fibers like carbon fiber and glass fiber, but slowly there is a movement towards the natural fiber. So we have to shift both the constituents. So therefore in the previous slide I have given an example of a composite material of a RCC structure. So there are two macro constituents there as per the definition also. So both the macro constituents slowly we have to transform into sustainable and biodegradable or environment friendly material. So from synthetic fibers we are trying to move towards natural fibers, and from non-biodegradable polymers we are trying to move towards biodegradable polymers. So slowly from non-biodegradable composites we are trying to move towards fully biodegradable composites. So the research trend these days is towards the development of fully biodegradable composites in which all constituents are natural, means the fibers are also natural. For example, there is a huge family of plant-based natural fibers. We can have to name a few, sisal fiber, Grevia optiva, we can have fibers from banana, we can have fibers from pineapple. So there is a huge variety of natural fibers available in our country which we can use as a reinforcing members in any composite materials that we try to develop, with a major focus on sustainability and environment friendliness. So that is the main thrust, or not only in the research community but also in the government policies and regulations. Slowly we will see that we will have to shift from our non-biodegradable polymers to the biodegradable polymers. And even one of these polymers which can be degraded under special circumstances, which is polylactic acid. I will be talking about that a bit later. With that is a already established material in FDM, so we can use fused deposition modeling, which is an important process in 3D printing for manufacturing of products or parts or prototypes of PLA. So PLA is one material which is biodegradable, which is environment friendly. So that is an important material which is being used in FDM process. So this is the basic idea about the polymeric composites in which we are working at. I will now, my topic is not about the materials. The topic is about the manufacturing. So I have only included 2 slides on materials. Otherwise we can discuss on these materials in depth, maybe in some other FDP program. I will like to discuss in much more detail. But now what we are trying to discuss today in this short span of 1 hour or 1 hour 10 minutes is the manufacturing comparison, or the comparison between the different manufacturing processes vis-a-vis the 3D printing or the additive manufacturing processes. So there is a recent article which has been published. I will show you the details of that article. Many of you may have already read that article also. So we are having this machine which is shown on the slide. It is an injection molding machine. Its make is Endura 60. So these are the specifications of the machine, but that is not all that important, because there can be different grades of injection molding machines and different types, different companies may be manufacturing. But the main point that I want to emphasize is the mold. The mold that we have developed for this machine can give us 3 samples in single shot. So we can see here, we can get an impact sample. As you can see on your screen, we can get, just let me try to increase the size of the slide. So we can get 3 samples. We can get impact sample, as you see here. We can get a flexural testing sample. This same sample can be used for compressive testing also, as well as we can get a tensile testing sample. So all these are as per the ASTM standards. So let me try to see if we can size. Okay, slightly it is more. Let me get. I think that is better, even slightly lesser. Okay, so this is the sorry. So this is the machine that we have here available with us, and as our mold that we have designed can give us 3 samples in a single shot. And as you can see the sprue here, so through the sprue I will show you the mold also. I don't know. So I will show you the mold also. So this is the injection molding machine that we are using here. Let me first go to the mold. This is the schematic diagram of the machine which was shown earlier. So normally in direct injection molding process, what we are trying to do, as I told you, we are working in the field of composite materials. We try to put both the fiber and the polymer pellets together. We make a batch of polymeric pellets, which can be PLA pellets, and natural fibers. We feed it into the hopper, and then through this screw barrel arrangement, we are able to inject the mixture after heating and melting of the polymer into the mold. And here you can see we have a mold. The mold I have already shown. It gives us 3 samples. Let me show the mold again. I think in the next slide it will be there. Now, this is the mold. Sorry, I'll again come back to the injection molding cycle. So this is our mold. You can see everyone can develop this mold. This is a simple metallic mold which can be used for injection molding process. So we can see here we have a 3 cavities. So cavity 1 is our tensile testing sample. The cavity dimensions are given, and the ASTM standard for tensile testing of polymeric composite materials is also shown. It is ASTM D3039M. Similarly, flexural test sample can be fabricated in cavity 2. It is seen on the screen. The dimensions are given in millimeter and ASTM standard is given. Similarly, we can get impact, and once we are able to get these samples, we can further cut them if we want to do a pin on disc type of wear analysis, or we can make holes in this fabricated samples to do the machining analysis of the natural fiber based composite materials. But for mechanical characterization, we have got this fabricated. So this is the mold that we are using for making, and the same mold we have used for making the samples for comparison of 3D printing FDM technology with the injection molding. So this is the injection molding process that we are using. So this is the injection molding cycle normally. This is for the benefit of those participants who have not studied injection molding. So in injection molding, there are 4 steps. The cycle starts here. You can see the green portion is shown here. So the cycle starts here, and then there is a mold close timing. This is based on the timing. So the mold will close. Once the mold has closed, there is an injection stroke through where we can control the injection pressure and injection speed, in which we fill the mold cavity with the material. So once it is filled, we hold that material in the mold for some time. By the time it solidifies and cools, these are 2 combination steps here. We hold the samples and we have to decide that what is the holding time. Because I am trying to emphasize on this slide is because it is not so easy to optimize all the parameters to get good quality samples. So therefore we have to decide that what is the injection pressure for this polymer, and if we are mixing the polymer and the fibers together to make a composite material, the life becomes even more complicated. So there are additional challenges in terms of choking of the nozzle, etc. And if we are using glass fibers which are abrasive in nature, there are chances of wear of the nozzle also, as well as there are chances of damage of the barrel also. So we have to see the various parameters like the injection pressure, injection speed, holding time, holding pressure. Then the cooling time we have to select accordingly. I will show you a fishbone diagram where all the parameters have been listed. And then once the material or the composite has solidified, or we can say the polymer has solidified in the mold cavity, the mold is opened and the material is ejected. Sometimes we use the ejection pins to eject the material. So this is the standard manufacturing process of injection molding, in which we use the various stages for making the material. So the cycle, and this is one cycle. Cycle starts with the closure of the mold and cycle ends once the material has been ejected. So the material which has been molded using the process of injection has been taken out from the mold cavity, and the molds are still in the open position. So for the next cycle to start, the mold will close and again the complete cycle will take place. So this is the basic mold opening and closing cycle, which is helping us to make injection molded parts. And this is the mold that we are using already. I have shared with you the detail. Now this is the fishbone diagram controlling parameters which affect the product quality in case of just a minute, 85%. So the product quality is controlled by processing parameters. We can see the melt temperature, injection pressure, cooling time. Then the mold also is important. We need to have mold which is having good cooling channels, because in order to have a productivity, we will, so all of you know that all these plastic parts, the productivity is very important, because every hour or every minute we should be able to make a product. So it cannot happen that we leave it to cool on its own. So it will take a lot of time for the number of parts to be made. So here one of the advantages is that the productivity or the rate of production of parts is very high. Similarly, the mold has to ensure the accuracy. It has to ensure the temperature is maintained inside the mold. So from mold point of view, we have to control certain parameters. From processing point of view, we have to control certain parameters. All these parameters, processing parameters, are shown here. You can see clamping force, injection speed, screw speed, and melt temperature, injection pressure. So it is, for example, when some PhD student or a master's student start working on a specific material, maybe first 2 to 3 months are only spent on optimizing all these parameters to get a good quality or a product quality of the sample has to be very, very good. So there are different types of defects that you will get in case of injection molding of polymers. And once you are able to optimize all these parameters, the product quality will be better. So these are the basic ideas about injection molding. So on the screen you see this is the operating window for injection molding process, a very important diagram where we can see only two parameters we are showing here. One is the barrel temperature and another one is the, on the x-axis if you see, it is the pressure. So injection pressure. So you see here that good quality products, there is an optimal window in which we should select our injection pressure and the barrel temperature. So if the barrel temperature is too low, there are defects. If the barrel temperature is too high, still there are defects. Similarly, injection pressure also, if it is too high, there may be flash, the material may come out from the area where the two molds are closing. So the mold will open, mold is open like this, it closes, and the flash may be seen at the closer points of the plane in which the two mold halves are closing. So we can see that there are different types of parameters here. Only two parameters are shown, injection pressure and barrel temperature. Similarly, there are other parameters also, and we have to judiciously select the process window in which we can make good quality parts. So it is not so easy, it requires time, but if we spend time and do experimentation, we will be able to find out that process window. Then coming on to the next slide, these are the processes that we have used at IIT Roorkee. In the very second slide I have shown, the third slide I have shown an injection molding machine that is available with us at IIT Roorkee. So these are the composite parts that you see on your screen. It is a direct injection molding part which has been fabricated using the natural fibers. On your screen you can see the natural fibers and pellets. So we combine these fibers and pellets and make a batch, and then we feed that batch into the hopper of the injection molding machine, and we can get the composite samples here. And these are three samples shown, tensile samples. As you can show in our mold, we can make three samples in one shot. So these are the tensile testing samples which are shown here, which can be used for finding out the tensile properties of the composites that are developed. So all these are polymer based composites that we have used. And in addition to this, we have seen that sometimes the compounding may not be too good. So in that case, just a minute. So we have seen that in direct injection molding, sometimes the compounding between the fibers and the polymers is not very good. So in that case, we have tried to use another process, that is extrusion injection molding. So I will just again show the screen. So in that case, we have used another process, that is extrusion injection molding. There are so many images in the PPT, so I have converted it to PDF so that it is easy to share. But still, I think I will have to look at my device once again. So this is the extrusion injection molding process that we have developed, and here what we are trying to do, because in FDM also, if you see, we have a nozzle through which the filament is fed, and we are able to create a product. So this is slightly analogous to that process only. Here we are trying to extrude the fibers that you see here. These are the fibers, these are the pellets. So in case of direct injection molding, we were feeding both fibers and pellets directly into the hopper. Here, instead of feeding directly into injection molding, we are feeding them into extrusion setup. This is extrusion process. In extrusion, we are extruding this using the similar principle, and then we are getting a composite strand which we are then palletizing. Palletizing means cutting it into standard sizes, and then we get a composite pallet. So composite pallets are clearly seen here. So these pallets are basically having fibers and the polymer. So natural fibers and polymer have been compounded or blended together in extrusion process, and then these composite pallets we are using as raw material for the, you can see, injection molding machine. So therefore the name of the process is shown as extrusion injection molding. So this is slightly similar to, just a minute. Okay, sorry for the interruption. There was an important phone call. So here we see that we are having a composite pellets. So these pellets we are using as feed for our injection molding machine. Now, one of the questions that may be there is that why these composite pellets we are creating first additional process you are adding, why not to put the fibers and the polymer directly as you were doing in the previous process. So we have found out that compounding is helping to improve the interfacial adhesion between the fibers and the polymers, and we have also reported all the findings and how extrusion injection molding is better than a conventional injection molding or direct injection molding. I think the source of the article is also shown here. This is our article in Composites Part B. So the details are available there, but here for today's understanding we can just keep in mind that the composite pellets, once they are compounded using the extrusion process, are used as raw material for injection molding process, and in injection molding again we make the sample. So for comparison purpose we are showing the same samples, tensile samples, as we have seen for the direct injection molding process. So coming on to the next process, I will just briefly talk about this process. This is not related to directly to our comparison purpose, because for comparison we have not made samples by this process, but this is another process that we have at IIT Roorkee in our lab. So we have a compression molding setup. So in case of extrusion, if I go to the previous slide, you can see that we were palletizing. We were palletizing the samples. You see here it is. This is an additional setup that we have designed and developed for palletizing. So we are making the pellets which were used as raw material, but in next process we are not palletizing. If you go to the next process, you will see that the material is getting collected in a preheated mold. So here, instead of cutting down or palletizing it into smaller composite pellets, we are collecting the extrudate. This is the extrudate you can see coming out from the extrusion. This is collected in the preheated mold, and the mold is taken to the compression molding machine where a pressure is applied on the material and composite plates are fabricated. So the images are also shown here. You can see this is a composite plate which can be fabricated. So if it can be enlarged, you can have different in sections. You can see the fibers are uniformly distributed all across the polymer. This is the actual image. Both these are actual images but with different polymers. So this is another process that can be used for making polymeric parts. So this is all that we have related to the conventional manufacturing of polymers and polymer based composites at IIT Roorkee. So these are the fabricated test samples on your screen that you can see. An important point here that you can note is that these three are made by the different processes A, B and C. So A, you can see, are made by direct injection molding, B are made by extrusion injection molding, and C are made by extrusion compression molding. So in extrusion compression molding, where we are making a plate and then we are cutting the samples as per the ASTM standards. So you can see these are fairly rectangular samples, but here, since they are coming from the injection mold where we are getting 3 samples in single shot, so this is the place where injection takes place. So on the other side of this we get the flexural and the impact samples. These are tensile testing samples shown here. So here you see this is a tensile testing sample, smaller image, flexural testing sample and impact testing sample, the natural fiber based. And these are the other images which show that when you add the fibers, how the samples would look like. So here in the first case, purely white sample, there is no fiber. In the second one, 10% fibers are there by weight, 20% and 30%. So at 30%, it gives a completely wooden look. And sometimes it becomes difficult even to recognize that whether it is a wooden product or it is a natural fiber-based composite product. So these are the samples that we are able to make. Now this was the work that we were doing, and one fine day, one student who was studying BTech in polymer science at IIT Roorkee, he approached me that, sir, I want to do some work. My area is polymer science and engineering. So maybe just while discussing with that student, one idea came to our mind that why not to compare the performance of the injection molding process that we are using with 3D printed parts. So that was the idea, how it germinated, and then slowly we started working on that, and where how and slowly after so many iterations finding out the optimal parameters. I will show you the optimal parameters that we have seen. We compared the performance of the two, and the results I will be able to quickly show you today. So up to here is what we are actually doing at IIT Roorkee, and these all this work has been published in different journals. And if some of the participants are interested, they can drop an email to me. Either me or my team, PhD students, will be happy to interact with you, respond to all your queries related to what we are doing in the field of composite materials here. And now once the samples are ready, it opens a plethora of opportunities. We can investigate wear, we can investigate machinability, we can investigate their degradation behavior, we can investigate their in-service performance behavior, we can investigate different types of behavior these materials will show under different types of active environment. So the making of materials or manufacturing of the material is a challenging task, but once you are able to do that, after that maybe the recyclability analysis can also be done. We have studied the recyclability analysis and published 2-3 articles in very good journals where we have tried to prove that if this material is recycled 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 8 times, how many times it can be recycled without much effect on the properties of the material. Then also next level, which properties are affected on recycling, which are not affected, and what is the percentage degradation in properties with every recycling stage. So there can be different areas in which the work can be taken forward. So up to this level we have already achieved the success in making different types of composite materials based on different types of fibers. One of the recent PhD students, I will just go back and show you the name. Maybe you can contact him on LinkedIn. Here you see in this article, Ujendra Kumar Komal, UK Komal, Ujendra Kumar Komal. He has worked on pineapple fibers and banana fibers and done the degradability and the recyclability study of these composite materials, that how they will behave under different set of environments. And the other Dr. Manish Leela, Manish Kumar Leela, you see here, MK Leela, Manish Kumar Leela. So Dr. Leela has worked on the bagasse sugarcane waste fiber, bagasse fiber, and worked on the recyclability, fiber extraction and characterization of sugarcane waste fiber and munja fibers. So different types of fibers he has used and made composites and worked specifically on recyclability and characterization of the materials. So this is the work which we have already done. Now coming on to the next discussion regarding additive manufacturing, I will not spend much time on this because this has already been discussed in detail. Today being Wednesday, I think the third day of the FDP. So a lot of work has been discussed on this. So I will skip this slide. Additive versus subtractive manufacturing. Many of you have already may have seen this diagram. Now, these are some of the differences in different manufacturing techniques which fall under the additive manufacturing domain. Now in additive manufacturing, I taught this course on product design and development, and in one chapter was on rapid prototyping. So I was reading a good book, and where I could see that maybe 5-6 years back I was reading that book, and I found out that there are 70 to 80 different technologies. This is I'm talking about in the book which was published maybe 5 years before or 7 years before that. So maybe 15 years ago, there were around 70 to 80 different techniques which fell under the broad umbrella of additive manufacturing or rapid prototyping. Now, all these processes are different in a way. Now, how they are different? They are different in their techniques used for creating the layer. For example, if you talk about stereolithography apparatus, the mechanism in which the process will operate and create the prototype layer by layer is different as we see in fused deposition modeling. If we talk about laminated object manufacturing, the way in which we deposit the layers will be different as compared to the selective laser sintering. So all these processes have some inherent differences in the way they operate. So techniques of bonding the layers are different. The speed at which the prototype or the functional product is formed or created or fabricated is different. Layer thicknesses range may different from process to process. Range of materials is an important point, because once we think of buying a high-end rapid prototyping setup, mostly I have seen, this is my personal opinion, that the materials are more or less patented, or the materials are more or less fixed for a specific brand of machine that we want to procure. So we don't get much flexibility to alternate materials on the same machine. So therefore there is a need to have open-ended setups where we can investigate with different types of materials as well. So range of materials is, I think, still a very big challenge, and for that we need to customize the setups as per the materials we want to investigate in order to have a better understanding or customization of the processes for specific set of materials, because this is an important challenge that we see. Then the accuracy will vary from process to process, and cost of making the part varies from process to process. Like, I was the coordinator of the tinkering lab here at IIT Roorkee, and we had different types of 3D printing machines, and we have a specific setup in which the raw material cost was somewhere around 35,000 per kg. So that setup we have only kept for the final well designed, well thought of parts by the students, and otherwise there were other setups which were, the material was to the tune of 1500 to 2000 rupees per kg. So that we were used for experimenting with different parts, part thickness, fill density, raster angle. So all those things, optimization, we ask the student, trial and error, fixing together, looking at the shrinkage, whatever investigation you have to do, whatever trial and error iterations, design iterations you have to do with a setup where the material cost is low. But once your design and all other aspects are finalized, then you go for final fabrication of your part on the machine which has a material which is using a costly raw material. So cost is an important parameter. So this is just an overview of how the processes are different. But we have selected a simplest and the most common process that is used and is available, that is the FDM process. This diagram may have been shown by many professors that how a 3D printing process normally operates. So I will skip this. This is a standard information in all good books. These are the application areas. This also might have been shown multiple times by the speaker. So I will just quickly show the industries. It has wide applications in tool and mold making, in biocompatible materials, sports equipment, surgical devices, jewelry items is another important. Now, what are the advantages and limitations? So I will talk about the limitations, as I have already told, that high process cost, because sometimes the materials are patented and we are not able to use our own material for a specific 3D printing or a rapid prototyping technology. Limited number of materials are available. That is also one challenge. High equipment cost for high-end manufacturing. As I told you that we have different setups here in Tinkering Lab. One of them is a high-end manufacturing setup, which uses a material which is also patented and very costly. So these are some of the challenges: process cost, material cost, and many times we have to go for pre and post processing requirements. So we will see, with the help of a diagram, we will try to compare that how conventional and rapid prototyping processes compare in terms of cost and complexity. But there are many advantages. Material waste is reduced in case of additive manufacturing processes. These are energy efficient. Material wastage is minimum. Green manufacturing, they are energy efficient processes. As well as the major advantage is the mass customization. The products can be manufactured with a wide variety, which can be done with conventional techniques also, but it requires huge investment in terms of molds and dies, which can be a deterrent, or which are the challenge, because the conventional chairs that we use in our canteens, or sometimes in our house also, the plastic chairs, the cost of the mold is very, very high. Now suppose we want to change the design of that chair, the mold cost is a big deterrent. Whereas if we are using a additive manufacturing technology, only changes that we need to do is in the CAD file of the product, and then the setup will be able to create that product as per the modification in the CAD file. But another challenge that we foresee there is the production rate. The productivity is very high in case of conventional manufacturing processes once your mold is available, whereas the time taken for making a product or a prototype or a part or a component in additive manufacturing processes that manufactures or fabricates layer by layer is quite significant. So that is an area in which lot of efforts are still going on, that how to reduce the fabrication time in additive manufacturing processes. So both have their own advantages and limitations, but one of the limitations I will show with the help of the diagram, which I have taken from a research article which was published recently, is related to the mechanical properties, that how the mechanical properties compare as compared to the conventional manufacturing processes for polymers. And there it is seen that in 3D printed parts, the manufacturing properties are slightly low. Just a minute. Okay, so mechanical properties are something which are important point for comparison, because we have to see that whatever properties we are getting with conventional manufacturing processes, can we get the same mechanical properties with the rapid prototyping processes or the 3D printing process. So that is what with the idea with which we started working on this article, and we were able to prove that yes, 3D printing with specific optimization parameters, or the parameters selected judiciously can help us to develop parts or components or prototypes or patterns or tools which are having comparable performance to the conventional manufacturing process like injection molding, but that also with specific optimized parameters only. So it is we are not saying that at every set of parameters of 3D printing, whatever part you will make will be able to compare, will be comparable in performance in terms of mechanical properties with the multi parts made by conventional manufacturing processes like injection molding. But we have to first optimize the 3D printing parameters, then make the sample and then compare it with the injection molding samples, which are also fabricated at optimal level of parameters of injection molding process. So that is what was our work. One of the important application areas for 3D printing can be where the number of parts required are very less. For example, there are only requirement of 10 parts or which have to be used as pattern materials. If we want, and the complexity of the design is significantly high. So if we want to make a plastic pattern, and that pattern we want to make using injection molding machine, the cost of the mold will be significantly high and will not be able to justify only making 10 parts or 10 patterns. 10. So that is an important challenge. Now what we can do is, time is not all that important there, because we have to make only 10 parts. In that case, if the properties are comparable with 3D printing parts, so in that case we can very easily make those 10 parts very easily using a 3D printing with comparable performance in terms of mechanical property. So that is a specific application area where the number of parts produced are less, but still we want to have the functional parts with specific performance in terms of mechanical properties. So that niche area we are trying to target during in this comparative analysis. Now quickly let us see what we have done. Sorry, one thing just came to my mind related to enables personalized manufacturing. Many of the students, they visit our tinkering lab with their specific requirement. For example, they have designed something specifically customized for their friends, or sometimes there is a batch which is passing out and they have some specific memories. So the students will come with a very specific design, and then they will do the iterations and they will make those mementos or those small insignias for their seniors when they are going to pass out. This has also been seen or observed. So it because the cost is going on down significantly for the setups, so it enables personalized manufacturing also, that you have your personal idea, so that can be very easily put into a 3D form or a tangible physical form using these processes. That is one of the major advantages of the additive manufacturing processes. Now here we see as is an important process. Again, I told you that we can compare them on terms of complexity. Now on x-axis you see the complexity, and on y-axis is cost. So all of us will agree, I think, if the complexity of the product or the part is increasing, the cost in case of conventional manufacturing will increase significantly. You can see here, this is the cost which is increasing linearly with complexity. But in case of additive manufacturing, if you see, the cost is independent of the complexity. So maybe if the part is very, very simple part, in that case, we may not be able to justify the use of additive manufacturing technologies. But after critical level of complexity that we see here, this is the critical level of complexity. Beyond that, the conventional manufacturing overshoots the cost of additive manufacturing, which remains fairly consistent. So that is an application area where we can use 3D printing. Complex part required maybe less quantity, and the cost of conventional manufacturing is too high, and in that case we can very easily justify the use of additive manufacturing technologies such as 3D printing. So for complex parts required in less quantity, but these parts have to be functional, they need to have a bare minimum mechanical properties to satisfy that mechanical performance of the parts, such as patterns in case of casting process, we can make use of the 3D printing technologies, because our study has justified that the mechanical properties are comparable to the injection molded parts. So quickly, I think I will speak for some more time, then we can have some discussion. So this is the setup that we have: fused deposition, FDM modeling. All of us know today is the third day of the course, so this process must have been explained by some of the speakers. So in 3D printing, we have this FDM technology here, and we use this process to make the parts which we use for comparing their mechanical performance with the injection molded parts. I have already tried to explain in the last 40-45 minutes the basic process of injection molding, how we are doing it, what type of materials we are using. Especially we are using the natural fibers and biopolymers for making the composite parts, so that we address that issue of sustainability and environment friendliness. Now we talk about the FDM, and this is a very simple technology. The raw material is in the form of a filament, and that filament is fed to the nozzle where we have the heating arrangement, and this hot material is then deposited on the bed, and we are able to fabricate the part. So I will show you which were the fabricated parts which that we have made. So here we see the dark blue color is showing the part, and the light blue color is showing the part supports. So sometimes when the part design or the design of the component is quite complex or overhanging sections are there, in that case we use the support material also. Therefore you see the two filaments. So one is a build material, that is the dark blue color, and another is a support material, that is light blue color. So we use two different fiber filaments. One is the support material, another one is the build material, and when the part is made, now it will require a post curing treatment in order to remove this support material, so that we get our final part. So this is a very, very standard process. All of you already may be knowing this. So I will go to the next slide. What we have done, maybe we will try to cover some of the. This is the process, how it takes place. Maybe we can skip this. I have tried to explain. These are some of the parts made by not only by FDM, but these are made by the additive manufacturing. Many of these parts have been fabricated in our lab, in the tinkering lab, where the students come up with different design. These are some of the samples which the students have fabricated. Images have been taken from our lab. So we can see that one of the major advantages of additive manufacturing technologies is the complexity, because if we have to make these parts, suppose in wood or in metal, it will require a lot of effort, which can be minimized if we use the CAD models of these designs and then use any 3D printing or the LOM or any other manufacturing for making these parts. Now, these are the comparative performance analysis. So just for the better understanding, we can see the two machines on which these parts have been made. The top A part are made by the injection molding. By now, it will be clear to you. You can see here the conical sections here, which are the sections at which we break our injection molded part into three. We got three samples, tensile testing sample, flexural testing sample, and impact testing sample, which I have already shown in the previous slides. And this is Ultimaker setup that we used for 3D printing of our parts, FDM. So these are the injection molded and 3D printed specimen. These are 3D printed, and the material that we investigate is environment friendly material, that is PLA. These are the samples which were fabricated, and then their mechanical properties were compared. And as I told you, that we can only compare at the optimized set of processing parameters only. So in one of the earlier studies we published, we optimized all these parameters. And finally, in this study, we only focused on fill density from 80%, 90%, and 100%. All other parameters were kept constant. There was no change in any other parameters. All this optimization of the parameters was published in another article. But here, for comparison purpose, we optimized all these optimized set of parameters were used. Only we changed the fill density just to see that how it affects the mechanical performance. Although it is well established fact that if you have a fill density of 100, it is expected to perform better. And then these were the injection molded parameters, optimized parameters, which we used for our injection molding setup for the same PLA material. So the material, as I told you, I have shown you that we can pelletize the strand, extrudate, or the filament into smaller pellets. So the same setup we used to pelletize the PLA filament, because here you see, if I go back, here in this case, we will be using a filament. A blue color filament is used, that is a PLA filament or a wire, which is used as the raw material. But the same fiber spool or the same wire spool we used in injection molding, but here in the hopper, we have to put the pellets. So what we did, we used the pelletizing setup in our lab, which you have seen just after the extrusion process. So the same pelletizing setup we used to pelletize the a PLA filament into the pellets, and those pellets were used in the injection molding setup. And the parameters, as I have already discussed in the beginning, I introduced these terms. I have not explained in detail, but I introduced that these are the parameters which are used to control the injection molding process, like injection pressure, holding time, cooling time, temperature profile. So all along the barrel, we have to have a temperature gradient in order to get the right quality of the product. So both set of parameters were optimized for both the processes, the FDM process as well as for the injection molding process. And then we compared, and this article already I told you, it is available now online. BK Kasaudhan was the student who was a BTech student. Komal was my PhD student. Both of them worked on this project, and this is published already in Journal of Materials Engineering Performance. And this is the comparison of the mechanical properties that you see, or the mechanical performance. And all the three are shown here. So D1, D2, D3 are the three samples. If I go back to explain, because this is the important part of my presentation. D1, D2, D3 are with three fill densities here you see. D1 is 80% fill density, 90% and 100%, D1, D2, D3. And IM samples are the injection molded samples. So how these four samples are performing, and it already published, is shown here. And if you see that the D1, D2, D3, if you compare the fill density, all of us know, no need to discuss that higher the density, fill density, better will be the performance. So here we see that with the fill density, D3 is giving us the maximum tensile modulus and maximal flexural modulus, and but it is comparable, even higher, slightly higher than the injection molded parts. Similarly, the strength values also, if you see, in the strength values also, tensile strength is comparable. Even the flexural strength is not with FDM parts is better as compared to injection molding. Similarly, the impact strength, although in case of the FDM parts is slightly less as compared to the IM part. So that will depend upon the further optimization and further investigation, that how we can improve the impact strength of our FDM parts, or what important parameters govern the impact strength of the FDM parts, because we have optimized these performance parameters, that I again go back, based on the tensile properties only. Some of you may have this question that how these important parameters were optimized. In another study, we only tested the impact, we only tested the tensile strength of the samples, and we found out these are the best parameters for maximizing the tensile strength of the samples formed by FDM process, the material being the PLA. So now here, what another point or another research direction that we have got after this analysis is that the impact strength also needs to be optimized, that these parameters may slightly change, so that we are able to have a trade-off between the tensile, flexural and impact strength. But the main point that we are trying to address here is that the properties are more or less comparable. There is not a very large difference in the properties, specifically the tensile and the flexural properties of the parts made by the FDM process and made by the injection molding process. Further, maybe research is a continuous process. Further efforts can be put in this direction. So we have variation in modulus. Then we studied how the thermal properties will change, because all the processes are thermal based processes. Because in case of injection molding also, heating and cooling of material is taking place. In case of FDM also, heating and cooling of material is taking place. But there was not much significant difference in the mechanical properties or the thermal behavior of the material. So we studied the TGA and the DTG, but didn't find much gap. And these are the microstructural analysis of the samples. Sorry, the microstructural analysis of the samples that we have done, and we can see that there are few air gaps, FE images. This first one is the injection molding. Then this is D1, which is fill density. D2 again fill density 90, but D3 with fill density of 100%. So we can see there are sometimes air gaps inside where the fill density is not 100%, but here we see lesser number of air gaps in case of 100% fill density samples made by the FDM process. And here you can see the cross section areas, optical images of the tensile fractured samples. We can see here IM is completely rectangular cross section, filled cross section, and similar is the case with D3 100% fill density, whereas in D1 and D2 we can see there are hollow sections inside. So optical images of the tensile fractured samples you can see here on your screen. Now maybe towards the last 10 minutes of my talk, I wish to, these are the comparative analysis, and I think for more you can have the details of this article, Ujendra Komal, Kasaudhan and Inderdeep Singh. The complete details are available in this article, just published maybe 1 or 2 months back. And then this is an important area of research. Now, whatever comparison we have done on your screen, whatever comparison you saw was only for the pure polymer parts. Now, pure polymer parts are PLA parts, as you have seen, polylactic acid. But now there is a huge investment in terms of composite materials or processes for composite materials that can be used for making the different types of products, lightweight products, environment friendly, sustainable products. So there, for that, these setups are there, and number of patents are now being filed. Now this is a schematic representation of this process, 3D printing process using continuous filament with the printing head of single nozzle and dual nozzle. Now what are the nozzles? Now composites you see here, this is a continuous fiber. and this is a thermoplastic polymer. So fiber is coming and polymer is coming, and they are getting combined in the nozzle, and the material is getting deposited on the building platform. Here we see that this is a nylon filament, this is a continuous fiber filament, two different nozzles we are using, and the material is getting deposited, and we are getting a composite material where two distinct constituents which are physically and chemically distinct are being used to develop a material which is a composite material. So these are the setups being developed these days. Many of these are commercially available also. I will show you in the last slide of my presentation some of the companies which are making these types of setups which can be used for printing or 3D printing of natural fiber based composite materials also. For natural fiber, there are not many manufacturers, but yes, I know team in Scotland has already developed a testing facility for, or a kind of a setup which can be used for natural fibers and polymers. But for synthetic fibers like carbon fiber and with different combination of polymers, these type of facilities are already available, or machines are already available. That is the next direction in which we will also try to focus our energy on using the different types of natural fibers that we have used for injection molding or extrusion injection molding, to use them as a raw material for 3D printing of natural fiber based composite materials. So it may require some efforts. The source is also shown here. If you see the source, this is the latest paper published in 2020 on composite structures of natural fiber based composite materials. So this is the structures like Kabir SMF. These are the published patents in the field of additive manufacturing of composites. You can see year by year the number of patents are increasing. Published patents we can see here. Lot of patents and papers are coming up. So these are different hereby details. It is published available in the same article. And this is an important diagram where we see which our study also justifies this, which has been published in 2020. This is showing the tensile strength versus the fiber volume ratio of parts manufactured by. Now it is showing two important points here: tensile strength on y-axis and fiber volume ratio, which is showing the amount of fiber that we are able to include or incorporate in our polymer. So as you know, in composite we will have a matrix which is a fiber, and we will have a reinforcement or a particulate additive which will be called as a filler or a reinforcement. So we have a matrix and we have a reinforcement. We are combining them to make a composite. And here we see that once the fiber volume ratio is increasing, how it affects the tensile strength for different category of processes. So here we see pultrusion process gives the maximum tensile strength because it uses the long fibers. Pultrusion process is used for long fibers. But if we see the two processes that we have compared, that is the additive manufacturing process, that is we have taken the FDM process, which falls in the family of additive manufacturing process. So we have taken FDM and injection molding. So the tensile strength values that we can achieve are significantly lower, even lower than 500 megapascal for injection molding and FDM process that we have used. But if we go for continuous fibers, the tensile strength can be significantly higher. So therefore, this shows that there can be a trend towards using continuous fibers in 3D filaments. We see there are filaments of PLA. Many times we use filaments of nylon. We can use filaments of ABS, which is acrylonitrile butadiene styrene. So we use different types of filament. But these filaments are purely polymeric filament. If we are able to integrate continuous fibers in these filaments along with the polymer, so that type of process can give us very high values of tensile strength, which can even improve or increase or augment the application spectrum of the parts that we are fabricating using the FDM process. So therefore, this shows a good comparison of the various manufacturing processes vis-a-vis the tensile strength value. So this gives a direction that instead of using short fibers in the filaments for FDM or 3D printing of parts, we must try to include continuous fibers in our filaments in order to get higher values or even higher values of mechanical properties. So that is a good trend that we can see here. So this is a good takeaway from this paper, which is just recently published in 2020. And these are some of the 3D printer manufacturers using continuous fiber as filament. So already there are manufacturers who are manufacturing using the continuous fibers as filament, as reinforcement. So you can see CF3D-TM, Arovo, Markforged, Orbital Composites, FDM, SLA methods are using the continuous fibers also as the reinforcement. So we can see here different types of matrix is possible. You can see polyether ether ketone, then there polyether imide, PPS. So you have different matrix materials, different. If I try to increase the size, you may not be able to read. So I think now it is clear. So you have different types of polymers which can be used as matrix and different types of reinforcement. As you see, the fibers are carbon fiber, aramid fiber, fiberglass. Here also fiberglass, copper wire, nichrome wire, nichrome. So you have different types of fibers which can be used. But the only now, as our target is towards natural fiber based filaments, so that none of the companies are manufacturing till date as per the data available in the public domain on in the year 2020. So therefore, there is a research gap that we can identify. That first thing that we can take away is that we can use continuous fiber filaments as reinforcement in the process of 3D printing. Also, these fiber filaments may not necessarily be carbon fiber or glass fiber because they are synthetic fiber, they are energy intensive, the carbon footprint is high. So if somehow we can research, develop filaments which are based on natural fibers used in continuous form, as well as the polymers which are biodegradable and biocompatible. So those kind of natural fiber based biodegradable polymer filaments can solve a large number of environment as well as sustainability issues. So that can be one of the important research trends that we will see in the next maybe coming 4 to 5 years time. We will be seeing that the 3D printing will be done using biopolymers having natural fibers as the continuous reinforcement in the filament. So I think that is my last slide. So I have taken my time, so I will stop here. And if there are few questions, I would be happy to answer, maybe if I have the answer to those questions. So that's all from my side, Professor Rupinder.
Yeah, dear participants, now the panel is open for discussion. Anybody wants to raise any query, please raise your query. You can unmute yourself and can ask directly, or you can chat also. Put your query in the chat box. Sir, there is a question in the chat box. If you allow, I may read, sir.
Yeah, please.
The question is, while using two independent extruder, in order to control them, is there any requirement special control unit?
Just a minute. I have phone call. Just a minute. Sorry, I think the question was that there are two extruders being used, so we need a specific control unit.
Yeah, is there any requirement for the special control unit?
Yes, I think that will be required, although we have not used any dual extruder setup in our lab, which we have at IIT Roorkee. We have used single extruder only. The setups that I have shown, very simple Ultimaker setup we have used, but certainly it will require, because the deposition has to be done in a controlled manner, because two different materials are being extruded. So definitely it will require a control mechanism to program that how the material has to be deposited on the build platform to get the right combination. Because one of the extruder, if you see in my presentation and in the article published in 2020, uh, they are having two extruders, but one extruder is feeding the fiber, another extruder is feeding the polymer. So we have to see that when which extruder has to deposit the material, because we will be creating layer by layer. Because in conventional manufacturing of natural fiber based composite materials, we also manufacture layer by layer and we laminate to get the exact thickness of the composite material. So here also it will require a proper control mechanism, programmed control, through which the two extruders need to be controlled to deposit the material. Although we have not used, I am just sharing based on my information that how we make a composite material in case of conventional manufacturing processes.
So there is another query. Is it possible to use natural fibers in powder-based 3D printing? Can we use natural fiber as powder materials?
Yeah, this is a very, very important question. And the answer to that is that yes and no. Yes, because natural fibers exist in different forms. You can crush them like these days we are using, because all of us read about these during this peak summer season, cases related to forest fires. So we are using the pine needles in crushed fibrous form in with polymers to create the natural fiber based composite materials for non-structural application. So certainly these can be used with specific set of polymers. But on the contrary, the yes part I have told, because we have already fabricated using our conventional manufacturing process. No, because if in a specific rapid prototyping process the temperature is significantly high, there are chances that the fibers may burn. Even if I may show you, even in conventional manufacturing, there are samples. Unfortunately, there is no burnt samples. There are so many samples, but all of them are good quality samples only. But there are chances, because these fibers normally start burning at around, we have done the TG analysis of different types of natural fibers, and they start burning at around 300 to 350 degree temperature normally of natural fiber. So we have to see the right combination of polymer and fiber to see that the polymer is able to be transformed or formed into the shape that we want. At the same time, the fiber should not get damaged. So if that kind of critical condition or critical temperature is maintained, in that case certainly natural fibers can be used as powder based material for making the FDM parts.
Thank you, sir. So any other query? Sir, I have one point. In a typical agrarian states, we have a lot of issues with the disposal during, let us say, in the after the winter crop or the summer crop. We have a different type of agri waste, and straw burning is a very common issue nowadays in our country. Suppose there is some ash content left after the burning. Can we use that as a reinforcement,
Uh,
as
Professor
it will be
Rupinder,
having a, yeah, having a better refractory properties and all things?
yeah, so there are two ways in which this question can be answered. The first is the term reinforcement. So reinforcement normally we call when we are trying to improve the properties of our parent material. So in case of adding ash, we may not be able to improve the properties of the parent material. Even the properties may even go down. So we may not be able to call it as a reinforcement, but yes, the other terminology that can be used is a filler. So we can use it as a filler rather than calling it as a reinforcement. So certainly it can be used, but again I will come to the application area. It can be used for non-structural application only, because in the last but one slide that I have shown, the trend has to now shift from short fiber or particulate fillers to long fibers, or maybe fiber based reinforcement, rather than going for a short fiber or a filler, because that will not add much strength. So if we want to make structural parts using the 3D printing or FDM or any of the additive manufacturing process, the reinforcement has to come in form of the long reinforcement rather than focusing on short or powdered based fillers. So that will depend upon the application, but certainly it will score very high in terms of sustainability, because we, in any case, even if we are able to add 20% or 15% of that ash content into the polymer, it will certainly reduce the usage of the pristine polymer in that application. So certainly we are reducing the use of polymer by 15 to 20%. So that will be our, you can say, unique selling point or USP for that material, rather than the properties, mechanical properties. But yes, it can be used as one of the fillers or constituents in developing natural fire, sorry, the waste material based filaments for 3D printing process.
Okay. So there is another query in the chat box. What will be the use of biocomposites in real life? Because biofibers will burn out if used in high temperature environment.
Yes, certainly they will burn out in high temperature application. But you can see this. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Can you see me?
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Okay. So see this. This is a product. What is the material of this product? This is a tea coaster. So normally it is a wooden material, non-structural material. With every office in IIT, we may be having number of such parts. And these are the natural fiber-based materials that we have developed. What is the difference between the two materials? Can't we use this material in place of this material? We have to only place a cup of tea on this. So there are a number of applications. Maybe another application that I would like to show you is just a minute. This is all made of wood, and it will never come in contact with very high temperatures. So such type of non-structural parts can very easily be made by natural fibers, and it will give you a wooden finish, and no one will even be able to decipher whether, and I can show you. So this can be cut and given any shape. This is a natural fiber based composite part. So you can cut it and join it, and you can make those kind of pen stands. Another application, there are a number of applications which are non-structural. As you can see, lot of mementos shared by different whenever we travel somewhere. So all the body parts are normally made up of wood. So that type of applications can very easily, no temperature is going to have any effect on these type of materials. So there can be large number of applications of natural fiber based materials, and slowly there are projects. I know another professor in China, Professor Yan Li. I have met her number of times in different conferences. She has got a project from Boeing, and the aircraft industry is also now focusing on natural fiber based composite materials, initially for non-structural applications. For example, in an aircraft we use a food tray, so that food tray is purely non-structural component. So that those type of projects she is handling, where she is trying to develop natural fiber based materials for non-structural application, even in the aircraft industry, where temperature is not going to be a concern. And normally, once they are integrated into the polymer, the fibers normally do not degrade. Sometimes there is a question, sir, these are natural fiber, insects may affect these, or termite may affect these natural fibers, but normally we have seen that it is the basic philosophy or basic theory behind composite material, that fibers are encapsulated in the matrix. So it is the polymer acts as a capsule and the fibers are inside the capsule. So the boundary is only the polymer, inside you have the fibers. So therefore this problem is also addressed, that the bioorganisms or natural organisms may have some detrimental effect on the performance of the natural fiber based composite materials. So therefore they have huge potential, and even they are being used now in a big way in various applications, not only across the world, but even in India there are companies which are manufacturing now non-structural parts made up of natural fibers. Yes,
Right,
but
sir.
it talk about 1200 degrees centigrade, 1500 degrees centigrade. So the fibers have no role there. The polymer will start to burn even at 250 degrees centigrade. So the role of fibers doesn't come into picture there.
Well taken, sir. I think there are no more queries. If any other query, we can still take one last. Anyway, thank you, Professor, for your elaborative discussion. We are really fortunate to have the input on this area, and I think this is also required to manage the waste in a big way in a developing country like India. Thanks for the elaborative discussion on this topic. Thank you very much from the Little Chandigarh side.
Yeah. Thank you
So
very
there,
much. Thank you.
thank you,
Thank you.
Professor.
Thank you
So
for
this,
giving me this opportunity to interact with the participants. Thank you very much.
thanks, Professor. Thank you. So, dear participants, we will take a break. The next session will start at 12 noon. Thank you very much.